So you can hear me? All right, very cool. So yeah, so I came across this video of Judge Joe Brown, and she had me tripping because see, I had been looking into it, and what I found out was that it was an actual serial killer living with them during this time. Now, shit, watch this shit. See, I don't know how much of it we're gonna get into tonight because I'm just now getting into this whole trying to get these screens and all this shit to work. But tonight, what I'm gonna do is lay down the groundwork with you. And this video with Judge Joe Brown real quick. Let me see. A lot of new bullshit.
What if I told you that you can instantly create pro-level chords and progressions without knowing any music theory, doing mind-numbing trial and error, or even watching a single YouTube tutorial? Introducing the Unison MIDI chord pattern. I want to ask you about O.J. Simpson. Do you feel like he did it or not? I know Johnny Cochran well. His number's in my phone. I've known him since 1966.
No,
He and I discussed what his strategy was.
this is Judge Joe Brown right here.
There is a reality, and his strategy dovetailed into the reality. They did not have a case against him. I listened to every scrap of the trial. I recorded it in my chambers, court chambers. I was a bachelor then. And I would listen to Nancy Grace, who would say, the evidence against OJ was devastating. There's no way he'll escape the consequences for this. I said, who is? And I'd listen to it. I said, wait a minute, what is she talking about? It doesn't get any better than that. The impound lot guy has just testified that he and his buddies went through the Bronco. There wasn't a drop of blood in it. It went through it with a fine-tooth comb. It was locked in a special enclosure that had 4 padlocks. He didn't have the keys to them, only the detectives did. They were instructed to tow the car down to the crime lab 11 days later, and now it's full of blood. Where did the blood come from? All right? The DNA evidence against OJ is devastating. And when I listened to what the expert said, he said, this is not OJ. First off, this is someone similar, but there are approximately 96,000 people in LA County that would match this DNA profile, which, by the way, and this is interesting, reflects someone from Northeast Mediterranean ancestry or perhaps from the island of Sicily. We also get something that didn't pick up in the newspapers or television. They had 2 people who were testifying remotely in the Federal Witness Protection Program who dated Nicole's sisters. Their testimony was that it was a message to them to keep silent or their girlfriends, Nicole's sisters, would get exterminated. So where were they from? That hypothetical organization that's got contacts with Sicily. Now, it just happens that I know personally the guy that made the gloves. I know personally, in fact, he was my brother, the person that was the expert knife killing that the prosecution called. Now, let's start with the glove. This person.
So basically, what happened around this time, Judge Joe Brown's his brother or whatnot was involved in the case too. Them old motherfuckers all in that time period. That's pretty much when they was shit. That was the 90s going to 2000s. That was his time that he was blowing up. Up until after then, he became a judge, TV shows, all that cool shit. But real life being involved with these cases and shit, yeah, he one of them niggas too though. Hmm. Crazy thing about DNA is you you can kind of trace, but it's so much genetics is similar that motherfuckers really can't pinpoint that shit down. That's why they still use primitive ass shit like fingerprints and all this shit that we know is directly on your ass. You know what I'm saying? You and your fingerprint, that's some your footprint too. But shit, that DNA shit, that's just like some extra shit they throw on there because you know they gotta get it done type shit. It shouldn't be, but it is, and in some cases, no, it ain't. Cause see, you know what I'm saying? You gotta remember that DNA shit so new. That shit didn't even start being used till like 90 something. Like so many cases was cold and all that shit. 80s and the 70s. That's how right. So no, that's some brand new shit anyway. It's just 2024, which means that they done made it a staple in society, but it's still fairly new.
Told me out his own mouth, and so did Johnny Cochran. They took a tracing of everybody's hand. OJ is a big dude. I knew him personally from college, and he wore a size not XL but 2XL. The glove was a size L, so they knew it wasn't going to fit. But guess who wore a size L? Furman. Guess who found the glove? Furman. Under a half foot of dead leaves, 75 feet into OJ's dark backyard, supposedly. All right. Now, my brother, who did not testify in front of the jury, when he was asked to assess the knife killing, he said, first off, OJ is a right handed guy. Whoever did this killing is a left handed person. Said each of the victims, Nicole and Goldman, were struck by a fatal blow with a knife turned sideways that slid in next to the central cartilage and the rib cage that tore up the aorta and upper two chambers of the heart. Then their throats were slit ear to ear, and somebody used some pliers to pull their tongues out through the slit throat. That's called.
Now, see, shit like that, that's some extra ass shit. No, so he in the heat of passion, is supposed to be a heat of passion type crime. And really, motherfucker, butcher. You see what I'm saying? So, this some mob style shit anyway. And now they saying that they're gonna get to saying other shit about indications of multiple people being there. And I already said that it was different kind of blood and shit, different kind of DNA. But hold on though.
The Colombian necktie. And meanwhile, in the blood, when they took him out on the scene, since he dealt with this kind of forensics, he says there's somebody that has a size 9 shoe and somebody that wore a size 10 and a half shoe that's leaving tracks. OJ wears a size 12. And the blood that they supposedly say they found because somebody got a slight wound on something like a finger, that's the sample that has 96,000 other people in LA County that could have donated it, and it definitely wasn't OJ, but Nancy Grace said it was. Now, the problem was also this planting evidence. The jury saw this, and Cochran brilliantly used it in final argument, a split screen. There had been so many instances where people were accusing LAPD of coming in and stealing from upscale homes that they had a security squad that would be sent in to video a scene before the crime scene detectives started their work so you could see what was in there. Well, 1:14 on the clock in the video, you can see them video the foot of the bed. There are no bloody socks. There are no socks in there at all. It's well lit. About 5 minutes later, you can hear this: "Sir, who are you?" And you can hear somebody who's identifying himself as Detective Furman, and they tell him he has to leave immediately. The jury saw this. Cochran is arguing from this in final argument. A few minutes later: "Sir, didn't we tell you you had to leave? Detective Furman, isn't it?" "Yes, sir. You got to go out of here right now." And they pan the camera around. And where is Furman? You can see through two doors into the bedroom. Furman is standing right there at the foot of the bed. 35 minutes later, when crime scene's in there, right where you saw it, 1:14, no socks at all, completely clear, right where you later saw Furman, you see now bloody socks. Now, what's the inference? Furman planted the bloody socks. You find that Furman has testified he found the size X glove that fits him, that does not fit OJ, but his story is he finds it under a half foot of leaves deep inside OJ's backyard after he climbs the fence. Furman lives 28 miles away. He's off duty, but for some reason, he comes to the scene 5 minutes after the murder occurs. He also was subject to testimony that he had been over to visit Nicole at least 11 times and he was trying to talk to her.
The crazy thing about this shit is there's so many motherfuckers that's involved. Like these, but it was the first publicized case too, though. It was the first case where they put cameras inside the courtroom. They hadn't ever done that shit till then.
Date her. There was also evidence that the jury here heard that, by the way, Nancy Grace said nothing about, where OJ caught her giving a head job to somebody on the couch, having sex with somebody on the couch. And the witnesses all say he was mad, but in the lines of, "Don't you know that the kids could come down and catch you? Why don't you deal with somebody who's not so broke they don't have an apartment or a hotel or a motel? If you need it, goddamn it, I'll give you the money. Just don't spend it on drugs."
That shit crazy. So this the whole thing. It's the whole thing. You know, in the beginning, that's what they were saying. They were saying that it was like a love triangle, and that but really more than a love triangle. They were saying like she was just really just out there, like she was fucking on the homeboy, cause allegedly, you know what I'm saying. She supposedly had a homosexual homeboy and shit, and then they were saying that the homeboy, it could have been somebody that was fucking with him that came and killed them too. But see, as we get into the shit, you're gonna see it's so motherfucking deep why you can't get to the bottom of it because like it's so many different motherfuckers that's involved with it that's on that other level. See what I'm saying? Because simply for the fact that the shit is the first publicized court case. After that, then we get all the court TV shows, we get the police TV show, then like this whole world of shit that wasn't even available at first. They didn't show us the inside of no courtroom. This shit was illegal. You couldn't take no cameras inside no courtroom. Even like professional journalists had to stand outside that motherfucker. They couldn't sit in there with the cameras. News Cause you gotta think about it, man. We talking about Yep, we talking about mass media. This when news start becoming a thing. Like news wasn't a 24 channel, 24-hour channel type shit. No, man, it was just some shit that popped up here and there on different little channels and shit. This shit established this thing though, to where the Nancy Graces, the that whole little investigation court, like you know what I'm saying? Like that shit created a whole channel. Investigation Discovery came soon after all this shit, a good 5, 10 years, but it wasn't even no avenue for this shit at first. Of course, you might have got some real life stories that turned into movies or some shit like that, and then with just like this shit. This shit was, I think, this shit ended up becoming some type of movie. So, shit. So all of this shit spawned this whole new thing to where it's a whole new industry of reality crime, uh, that shit, crime investigation. My nigga keep off crime investigation and all that different shit. It started this whole world of real crime drama. You know what I'm saying? Like fuck what's that show? Law and Order, not that shit. But the real shit where you there and they showing the pictures of the dead motherfuckers. Like that shit wasn't a thing. They would never, man, shit was so motherfucking censored. If you showed anything on TV, that was it. They wasn't letting the motherfucker cuss. They wasn't doing none of that shit, let alone showing bloody scenes, dead bodies. Shit, investigation discovery, you can see the dead motherfucker and everything. They like blotted out a little bit, but 48 hours and all this shit. So this shit started that the bitch Nancy, oops, my fault, Nancy Grace, and all them motherfuckers. These the people, huh? Nah. So what it is in order for the two, they all used, man, and they all be used whenever they need them to attack a motherfucker or paint a motherfucker in their way, as far as to sway the people. Yeah, and Nancy Grace, man, she one of the first big motherfuckers to do that shit.
If OJ did what they said, he had just returned from a recital with his two daughters. He would have had to been prepared, baby, girl. If you hear mama screaming, it's just daddy killing her. Go tell your baby sister not to panic. I won't hurt anybody. That is not the way it went down. All that stuff in there was garbage. The jury stayed out less than half an hour from people that I talked to who were present later after I had the show. After I got a chance to look through all of the evidence, because some judge that I had recruited to UCLA happened to be granting me access to look at the pictures and look at the physical evidence. They had absolutely nothing on him but what Nancy Grace put out. And that sleazy woman who has got a history of that kind of behavior convinced the American public that OJ was guilty, and they didn't have one shred, one scintilla of evidence. Now, Johnny Cochran told me, he said, Joe, what I did was this. I just got people over 45 years old 40 years old who grew up in Los Angeles who understood that LAPD would lie. So they weren't freaked out by the proposition. And they just found LAPD was telling a big lie. That's basically what it was. They planted the evidence. Now, you want to get the kicker? There's what they call the Rampart scandal. The four chief detectives.
Now, this the crazy part. This the crazy shit. So the whole Rampart scandal. So you remember the movie Training Day? That's all that shit was. That whole 10 years of gang, the police being basically a motherfucking gang, and that Denzel Washington. Shit, that Denzel, huh? Yeah, that Denzel Washington character, the character he played, hell, it was a whole lot of niggas that acted that was on that shit right there. So them motherfuckers, they went crazy. Them niggas was robbing banks, shit like this right here. They was the motherfuckers behind this OJ shit. They was behind the OJ shit. They was behind the Tupac getting shot shit. They was behind the Biggie getting shot shit. This the same. So with so the thing about that is this: what is rivals and gangs to them? Dollars. If you ain't got gang members, shit, you ain't got. And that's how Nipsey get killed. We gonna go right back to the police. It's gonna go right back to the police. Now these particular ones he talking about, these some of the biggest cases of the '90s and the 2000s that these motherfuckers in particular is involved with.
It went to jail.
Huh? What I'm talking about, and this other motherfuckers is there to witness the shit and report on it. So it's crazy, right? So it's like they don't even give a fuck.
Planting evidence that resulted in 128 men being released from the California penitentiary because these low down bastards planted it. These are the same four chief detectives involved in the OJ case. Also caught on tape was one of these lab technicians bringing OJ's 10 cc sample of blood back to the scene. What did you do with it? Well, I don't know. Did you bring it back to the lab? I think I lost it on the scene. The testimony they got from somebody that was an expert in that was that the blood sample you got, they tried to plant 10 cc's of OJ's blood, but it had decayed, so they didn't get anything out of it. But fortuitously, somebody else there that did do a little bleeding, which couldn't have been OJ because he had no wounds. And they brought in an airline co-pilot to testify that he got OJ's autograph in the flight log and he had no wounds. And the guy sitting next to him played blackjack with him all the way to Chicago said he didn't have any cuts on his hands. So they tried to plant the evidence. And that's exactly what they like Johnny Cochran said, it was a rush to judgment. And actually, most of the defense lawyers I know and several of the criminal judges I know at the time who looked at this said they had probable cause to indict Furman, but they didn't. And who was it that cut their throats ear to ear and pulled the tongue out? And who was it that just hit the same death blow to each of them from the perspective of somebody being a left-handed person, taking out the aorta and two upper chambers of the heart? That was a pro. Now, here's one thing from the many homicide trials I'd either represented somebody with or presided over. Amateurs expect when they stab somebody, it'll be like in the movies, they fall over. Absolutely nothing happens. They stab. This dude ain't done nothing, man. This Superman, hell. Boom, let me stab him again. Hell, nothing happened. Boom, let me stab him again. And you get 15, 20, 25 stab wounds until they add up so the person starts hemorrhaging enough so the blood pressure is more quickly dropping. A pro knows I just killed him. He might not act like it for a little while, but he's dead. And it was a pro that did it. And there were at least two people on the scene who were responsible for it. And there you go. That would exclude OJ. So actually, from some of the courtroom personnel and a couple of judges who peeped in on the trial, they said they didn't have anything on OJ. And they agreed with me. It was Nancy Grace that just lied and said there was something on OJ because she was trying to make her. This was her first assignment. and she wanted to ensure a career in television. I busted her a couple of times, once on Larry King Live, when she claimed she had figured out what happened in this murder where somebody got killed on campus. And what turned out is just what I accused her of. You went and paid somebody a bribe, and one of the detectives briefed you on what they're going to hit the guy with tomorrow because they got some other evidence. You didn't deduce that. And see, that's lack of being scrupulous. Yeah. So you got cops that went evidence. They were the chief detectives. You could see at least one detective plant the evidence on video. You heard all this testimony if you actually were present during the trial. That's not OJ. That could be 96,000 other people in LA County. It ain't him. It's somebody from Northeast Mediterranean or Sicily. Didn't you hear two mobsters talk about, we took it as a message that if we open our mouths, our loved ones were going to get killed. It was a message to us. Everybody thought she was a junkie that owed everybody in West Hollywood a lot of money. Where are you going with this? Nancy Grace said OJ killed Nicole and Rod Goldman. The civil case where he was found liable, his civil defense team was nowhere near as good as his criminal defense team. And the standard of proof was not beyond a reasonable doubt. It was by so-called preponderance of the evidence. And he did not have as favorable a jury venue as Johnny Cochran managed. Plus, I met him. He wasn't that kind of guy. I knew him from college. He used to hang around with somebody I knew, and everybody used to play cards. He and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and OJ and some of the athletes and some of the professors, black, they'd all be out in Santa Monica right on the beach. Somebody had a big 5-bedroom sprawling house. We used to hang out there. He's not that kind of guy.
Crazy as hell. But I'm gonna play this video too real quick. And this one here is about the serial killer shit. Oh, this nigga named Glenn Rogers. This nigga named Glenn Rogers. Hold up.
On June 17th, 1994, Ron Goldman and Nicole Brown Simpson were killed in Brentwood, California. Everyone knows that O.J. Simpson was charged and acquitted of that double homicide. But what you might not know about is that there are 5 other homicide victims that are connected to this O.J. Simpson case that you never heard of. On July 1995, Antranik Gouv Jahizian was shot and killed in his Pasadena neighborhood after taking the trash out one evening. G12, as the LA County Sheriff deputies often referred to him as, was actually the bailiff during the O.J. Simpson trial. Most courts have bailiffs provide security during court proceedings and trials. In Los Angeles, it is the Los Angeles County Sheriff Department that's responsible for securing the courts. So this bailiff was actually an LA County Sheriff deputy. He worked in Judge Lance Ito's court, and he was also responsible for sequestering the jury. But on this night, he went out to take the trash, and according to his wife, he was confronted by a prowler. He pursued that prowler. There were some screams and yelling, and she heard one shot, and he was killed from that one shot. The following day, Judge Lance Ito actually suspended the trial in remembrance of G12. And what's also unusual is that G12 lived in the same Pasadena neighborhood that Judge Lance Ito lived in. Terrence Patridge, and he was eventually found guilty of the homicide of G12, and he was sentenced to 54 years in prison for his role in that case, but he was actually sentenced to a total of 373 years in connection to other cases, which included sexual assault, rape, and burglary. On March 19th, Charles Minor, who happened to be a friend of O.J. Simpson, a well-known record executive, was shot and killed at his Malibu home by one of his girlfriends. Being connected to many hits, music hits in the 1980s, but he also had a reputation for being a ladies' man. This guy had so many girlfriends that eventually one of his girlfriends, Suzette McClure, was a little unhappy about his philandering ways and showed up at his Malibu home and shot him one time, killing him. The way that Charles Minor connected with Suzette McClure is that Suzette actually had lost her job. She worked in the aerospace industry in a very successful job, but everyone knows in the 1990s, the aerospace industry in Los Angeles took a huge hit, and there were several layoffs. And somehow Suzette McClure went from working as a professional in the aerospace industry to becoming a stripper. And her job as a stripper eventually led her to meeting Charles Minor, who frequented strip clubs. And that's how their relationship started. Eventually, Suzette McClure pled guilty to second-degree murder. She was actually facing 19 years in prison, which means she should have been released by now, but she's still sitting in a California prison to this day. So this homicide happened in 1995, and since she was facing a maximum term of 19 years, she should have been released in 2014. But she's still sitting in prison in 2016, and there's no telling why she's still in prison. Most likely, she was up for parole, and the parole board turned her down, or she had additional years added to her sentence for other activities that happened in prison. Casimir Sucharsky is a friend of O.J. Simpson. He was 48 years old at the time of his death, and he was shot and killed in his Florida home back in 1995. Two gunmen actually busted into his house, and while he was entertaining two other guests, these two gunmen killed all three people, execution style. Casimir Sucharsky, who was also known as Casey, was a nightclub owner, and he became friends with O.J. Simpson through O.J. visiting various nightclubs. Also, Casey was killed 11 days before Ron and Nicole were killed, and O.J. Simpson and Casey were actually talking and hanging out days before this homicide took place. Now, what's unusual about this homicide is that, one, it's a triple murder, actually, because Casey and his two friends were killed. But the entire homicide, which occurred inside of Casey's home, was captured by the surveillance cameras in his home. And the two gunmen, one had on a mask. They actually both had on ski masks, but one of the gunmen actually removed his mask. And the two suspects in this case were Seth Penalver and Pablo Ibar. They were both arrested and eventually convicted, and they were actually both sentenced to death for this triple homicide. But an unusual twist in this case, Seth actually had his death penalty conviction overturned. He was granted a second trial, and in 2012, he was found not guilty. Now, this trial, which took place in Broward County, turned out to be the longest trial in the history of Broward County. And not only did Seth get his death penalty overturned, but Pablo Ibar also had his death penalty overturned. And he's looking at possibly having a second trial this year in 2016 and possibly being released. Even though this entire homicide was captured on surveillance camera in Casey's home, it is believed that the footage isn't of enough quality to identify the suspects beyond a reasonable doubt. And that's one of the reasons why and Pablo had Ron Goldman. He met him at the Mezzaluna restaurant where they both worked, and he was shot and killed in 1995 by robbers at an ATM machine in Hollywood. Michael Nigg was shot and killed on September 8th, 1995. He was 26 years old. The LAPD was investigating a few suspects in connection to this homicide, but they never charged anyone, and this homicide remains unsolved. Michael Nigg is connected to this case because he was considered a very close friend of Ron Goldman, and they both worked at the restaurant together, Mezzaluna, which was located in Brentwood. In fact, during the deposition of Ron Goldman's father during the O.J. Simpson civil case, the attorneys were asked him. They asked him about Michael Nigg and what was the relationship between Michael Nigg and your son, Ron Goldman. And he acknowledged and admitted that Michael Nigg was a friend of Ron Goldman. And really the strategy there for O.J. Simpson's civil attorneys were they were trying to connect Ron Goldman to other characters that were killed in a variety of different ways, possibly connected to drugs. But everyone knows in that civil case, O.J. Simpson was found liable of the double murder of Nicole and Ron, and he was ordered to pay over $30 million to Ron Goldman's family and Nicole Brown's. Thus far, they have received less than $500,000. One reason is because O.J. Simpson moved all his assets to Florida, which is a state that allows you to protect your assets from being seized. And it just happens to be the same state that his friend Casey was killed several years before. And now that O.J. Simpson is serving a 30-year sentence in Nevada, it's highly unlikely that the Ron Goldman family and Nicole Brown Simpson's family will ever see any more money in that $30 million judgment. The last victim that you may have never heard of is Brett Cantor. And he was actually killed in his home in 1993, 11 months before Ron and Nicole were killed. Brett Cantor was a 25-year-old record executive and part owner of the Dragonfly Club in Hollywood, which was located near Santa Monica and Vine. But what's really unusual about the homicide of Brett Cantor is that he was killed in the exact same fashion that Ron and Nicole were killed. His throat was slit from ear to ear, and he was stabbed multiple times in his chest and shoulder. In fact, one of O.J. Simpson's attorneys, Robert Shapiro, wanted to introduce the homicide of Brett as evidence to show that there may be other killers out there, or there may be an alternative theory to the reason why Ron and Nicole were killed in that double homicide. But Judge Lance Ito did not allow the evidence of Brett's murder to be introduced, so the jury never heard about it. Another interesting thing about the homicide of Brett is that the same homicide robbery unit that was responsible for investigating Ron and Nicole were also investigating the homicide of Brett Cantor. Now, this was the homicide unit led by Van Adder and Lang, who became household names during the O.J. Simpson trial. But the LAPD never identified a prime suspect in this homicide, and this homicide remains unsolved. I think one unusual thing about these 5 victims is Michael Nigg and Brett Cantor. These were 2 friends of Ron Goldman, and they were considered 2 very close friends. And you have really 3 friends within a year and a half, all murdered in this very short time period. And I just think that's highly unusual and rarely discussed. So those are 5 homicide victims that you've probably never heard of. Tell me what you think. Does it make you think about the O.J. Simpson?
So, but see, I'm like, well, it's like 2 minutes long. Then I'm and it's about Glenn Rogers, all of these different angles to this shit. Oh, see, I knew it was I knew that it was gonna be like that. Cause see, like I said, all of the different intricate things to it, they couldn't let nobody walk away from. It's just like the Tupac thing. Everybody that was, it's been so many motherfuckers. At first, it was like 10 different detectives, and they was becoming famous and everything. They was some bodyguards, a couple motherfuckers, and they was coming out. They was telling the story and all that shit. And year by year, the motherfuckers would get killed. And it's the same shit to like right now. Ain't really nobody left from that case. Like most of the people locked up, and then like the Keefy D dude and shit. We didn't even know he was a part of the bullshit. But it's like just like 1 or 2 motherfuckers alive now. So that's the same shit. You like each one of them cases like that. They gonna start knocking motherfuckers off. Them that wasn't random. Just like the dude they ran up to him and intruded on his property or some shit. But they was on feet and shit. Like that wasn't no. That was some targeted shit. They know what kind of motherfucker. You know what I'm saying? Like if you were okay, 9 times out of 10 you a bailiff or some shit like that. Well, you in police, you in law enforcement or whatever. So a motherfucker run up on your property, you most likely gonna pursue them. They knew this shit. There was like a setup, like to get a motherfucker to run off base and smash them, and that's what happened. And then that's just the first person that they mentioned. Then just case after case, motherfucker get knocked off to the motherfuckers who die exactly like them. Like that's called a pattern. You know what I'm saying? Like that's how you trick. That's how they find out who the serial killers is. These motherfuckers have signatures and shit. But what you think? Mm-hmm. 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 So it's like it and it could have been all of this shit. And the crazy thing about rich motherfucker problems, all this shit could have stemmed from somewhere he fucked up. He could have pissed the wrong motherfucker off, or like up there at that level, it's easy to piss the wrong mother. You a superstar or what you think you're a celebrity, because by this time he was already a that nigga was like the first Jordan, but for football. That nigga had all kind of endorsements, all this shit. They had this one little commercial when I was a kid. I don't know. I don't remember if it was Wheaties or if it was a shoe commercial or some shit. They had this nigga running through the fucking airport though. I was like, what the fuck? But see, like I say, he was the first Jordan, so he already dealing with powerful and rich motherfuckers, and just like they were saying about all the different mafia tie-ins with it. Well, mafia motherfuckers run with serial killers, so I mean that's what they pretty much breed. So there's nothing for them to sick a motherfucker on your ass that hey can pull off some shit like that, like real life clip all of you motherfuckers and don't nobody even know what the hell going on. That's they forte. That's what they specialize in. Yeah. Okay. Mm-hmm. 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 Good thing. Yeah. 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 The scapegoat. I heard a motherfucker say earlier, you want to blame something on somebody, you got to put a nigga in place. You got to put a nigga right there. And it's like, man, this video right here is um of the dude Glenn Rogers, and I think I'm gonna when I get a chance, I'm gonna go live, but I'm gonna try to screen record it so the screen share that shit. So so you can see it. But because it's a pretty long video, it's like an hour, and it's crazy as hell because this the person they believe that actually committed it, even though it's all these different motherfuckers that surrounded the case. That even on the scene, he said it was two different shoe sizes, so we know it was more than one person. But this
Wasn't OJ. A Hamilton man says his brother is the one who killed Nicole Brown Simpson and her friend Ron Goldman, and now his story has been into a documentary set to air on Investigation Discovery. But one woman we spoke with says not so fast. Joining us now from Hamilton with the story, Karen.
Well, Mike, the documentary is set to air Wednesday night, and it'll take viewers to Hamilton, here along Park Avenue. The narrator of the film is the brother of serial killer Glenn Rogers. But another family member I spoke with for quite a while today says the allegations in the film made by Clay Rogers are just not true. Glenn Rogers, currently on death row for a murder in Florida. The Hamilton native made local and national headlines in 1995 when he led police on a high-speed chase, which ended in Richmond, Kentucky. Rogers is also suspected of killing at least 10 others, and once claimed he had murdered 70 people.
I was about 11 years old. Glenn was about 8.
Now his brother Clay Rogers, seen here narrating a documentary that will air on Investigation Discovery, claims Glenn is also responsible for the 1994 deaths of Nicole Simpson and Ron Goldman.
He would share bad things with me, so there was a bond there.
The documentary claims Glenn told family members that he was working for Simpson and he was going to take her down. But in an exclusive phone interview with me, who was married to their other brother Gary for 30 years, disputes Clay's allegation. Paula says Glenn, quote, did not kill Nicole Simpson. He was in the area. He was in the same bar Nicole was, but he did not kill her.
See, that bitch foul as fuck because she full of shit. She a lying ass bitch. Now I'm gonna try to find other video. This nigga actually real life worked for them niggas. So this bitch, what she talking about? You know what I'm talking about? Plus again, this nigga confessed the shit. Let me find that shit. So this, yeah, it's that programming shit real than a motherfucker.
It's all the time, not today.
If you want your subscribers to look like this on YouTube, you need to make sure that you're posting
Alright,
at the right
nigga,
video,
alright, nigga.
posting at the right time, and using Goldman.
What you say? Okay, talk to me. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Right, right. I got you. I see you. I see you. I see you. But not really want to implicate. Yeah, I can feel that. I can feel that. Yeah, yeah. You don't have to throw the details. You don't have to. True. That's true.
Were found lying in pools of blood outside Simpson's Brentwood, California condominium. As reported by Penn Live, both Simpson and Goldman had been stabbed multiple times, and their attacker had fled the scene. In the course of their investigation, authorities learned Nicole was the ex-wife of former football star O.J. Simpson. For AP News, law enforcement officials went to O.J.'s house at approximately 4:30 a.m. to inform him of Nicole's death. They immediately noticed what appeared to be a blood stain on O.J.'s Ford Bronco, as well as a trail of what appeared to be blood leading from the vehicle to the front door of his home.
And they saying bullshit. They keep saying what appear to be and all this monkey ass shit. When we dealing with court cases where you and I'm just saying, and shit like murder cases, you can't even. It's so easy to get overthrown. They have to have exactly when you was there, eyewitnesses, shit like that, shit that cannot be disputed because the case so sensitive. One wrong thing, they can't try you again because there's double jeopardy. And one wrong thing, the actual whole fucking case could be thrown out because when you're dealing with something like murder, then all of the evidence and shit have to line up perfectly, or you can't blame that shit on that person. So for them to be like, oh, this is what it seemed to be. What you mean, motherfucker? Was it blood? Was it not?
As they were suspicious of O.J.'s possible involvement in the murders, authorities obtained a search warrant to search the inside of his vehicle and home.
I always said it was the most depressing and sad night of my life.
During the search, law enforcement officials found a bloody glove, which was similar in appearance to a glove found at the murder scene for AP News. They also found more blood stains inside Simpson's vehicle and home. Simpson was ultimately arrested and charged with 2 counts of murder in special circumstances on June 17, 1994. However, he vehemently denied any involvement. During the trial, prosecutors argued that OJ and Nicole had a notoriously volatile relationship and that OJ was jealous of Nicole's relationship with Goldman. Meanwhile, OJ's defense team argued that he was framed by police officers. They also argued that the evidence against OJ simply did not prove he was guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. The trial, which lasted 9 months, concluded on June 3, 1995. Jurors determined OJ Simpson was not guilty in the murders of Nicole Brown Simpson and Ronald Goldman. Although Simpson and his supporters think the jury made the correct decision, others believe the former football star got away with the murder. Over the years, several theories regarding who else might have killed Nicole Brown Simpson and Ronald Goldman have been suggested. One theory, which was presented in the 2012 documentary My Brother the Serial Killer, suggested that the pair were actually murdered by serial killer Glenn Edward Rogers. In the documentary, Glenn's brother is absolutely certain that my brother killed Nicole Simpson and Ron Goldman. Clay also suggested that Glenn had the means and opportunity to kill Nicole and Goldman, as he was working as a house painter in the area when they were murdered.
So, bitch, but yeah, like you said, I can feel you on the dry snitching thing. But these people know it also. There's some well documented shit that the nigga was working up in the area with, you know what I'm saying? And from what he said, which I'm waiting to get to the part about the confession, because it's I remember him saying it. I gotta find the exact video. But that the nigga confessed to the shit. So I mean, they trying to go around saying the shit, but of course, like I say, it destroyed their narrative of OJ being the killer.
For ABC News, Glenn reportedly told his brother and sister that he met Nicole and noted that she was wealthy.
They got money, they're well off, and I'm taking her down.
In an interview with the Criminal Profile, Glenn allegedly claimed that O.J. Simpson had hired him to steal a pair of earrings and kill his former wife during the robbery. Glenn also provided specific details about the deaths of Nicole Brown Simpson and Ron Goldman, which further supported his claim that he committed these brutal murders. ABC News reported that in addition to knowing details about the murders, Rogers was able to draw a detailed picture of the knife he claims to have used to kill the victims. According to ABC News, filmmaker David Monahan said he believes the information provided by Glenn's brother. Combined with Glenn's confession to the Criminal Profiler, Monahan believes that this should have been enough to prompt an official investigation into his possible involvement in the murders. However, Ronald Goldman's father, Fred Goldman, disagrees. When asked about the information presented in the documentary film, Fred said for ABC News,
Now, what kind of shit is that? They say the nigga drew the motherfucking knife. Shit. God damn, that's some crazy shit. The nigga drew the knife that was used. Man, we know that all of that shit don't even get released. They don't tell you exactly what kind of knife. Like, that's how they catch the motherfucker, because only you know exactly what kind of knife, nigga. You know it was a Bowie knife and not a butter knife. You know what I'm saying? Not a fucking kitchen knife or knife. You the motherfucker to know, because you the one that did it. And this nigga know to the point where he drew the motherfucker. This shit crazy.
the fact of the acquittal at the hands of the jury will never wash away this murder from the hands of O.J. Simpson, no matter how many Glenn Rogers pop up on the media radar.
Boom. And that's all they wanted to do. That's all they wanted to do, because I don't know who he pissed off or what happened. Like you say, it most likely was a handler situation. You know what I'm saying? And just what that nigga just said right there. And that's the most important line of the whole goddamn night. Now that off OJ's hands. So no matter if he done it or not or whatever, his legacy as this incredible fucking football star is definitely gone. Cause don't nobody even give a fuck about them. All they care about now is did he kill? Mm, that shit powerful, man. How they can just destroy your image and that shit it'll fuck up your whole legacy. Yeah, damn man. So it was like this big societal program, and that's how they cancel your ass. And that's that cancel button. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Hell yeah. Cause you know what? They could have fucked him up because they could have fucked him up. But like you say, they kept him alive all that time. And it was to torture his motherfucking ass. That shit crazy. Cause yeah, he did his legacy definitely ain't what it was. And then like I say, when I was a kid, shit, all the old heads and shit, they admired him. He was like one of them niggas. He was the Jordan of of his time. And with the endorsements and everything. But just like that, they get your ass just like Drake. One thing, one good swing on your ass. And that wasn't even the real, you know what I'm saying? That wasn't even the whole industry coming at him. There was just one human being with the Drake thing. But this shit with OJ, it was like the whole world came against his motherfucking ass. But yep, I'm going to end this live and I chop it up with you if you still up, you know what I'm saying? But I appreciate you for coming on live with me, man. For showing fair use, all the videos that was used tonight, educational purposes, research, basically just trying to learn and things like that, and look into these cases in these videos to get an understanding of them and try to come to our own theories. So that's what that is, YouTube. And everybody who catch this video, share, like and share, comment, let me know what y'all think. You know what I'm saying? Peace.